Alright, this video is to review some of the methods associated with strings on the AP test. And oftentimes you want to take like just part of a string, like maybe you want to get the middle initial or something in this case. And remember how it works is the letters each get an index, including spaces and periods. So if I was to take Billy J period Bumpkin and label it, it would have indexes from 0 to 15. Um, and the length would actually be, if you want to think about that, length is again actually 16. Okay, and then some of the methods you might call, um, I've made a deal here where this is a really good thing you might want to print out when you take the AP test. It's called Java Quick Reference. They usually give it to you in your packet of test materials, and it just has like a list of some of the um, methods and classes that you might use on the AP test. So if it ever loads here, you can see it's got a whole bunch of things about string. Like here's the different methods and a description of what they return and what they do, right? And so these are all the ones you might use. Length, there's two different substrings, index of, and then you can say if it's equal another string, and then that compare to, which we learned about in a lesson. I think it was last week we learned about that. Okay, and then they also have some other ones, about the integer class. This is kind of useful if you forget like integer.min value, right? If you need to do that when you're like finding the max value, sometimes you set your initial thing to integer.min value. Got the double class. It's got some stuff about math, especially math.random, right? We're going to go over that later. And definitely probably use math.random. This year is a short test, so it might not be on there, but in general, it's on there. And then here's all the different array list methods, right, and descriptions of them. So this is a good thing to have handy when you're taking the test. For today, if you want to reference it for the string ones, you could even print it off today, but then use it for the string ones we're going to be doing today in class. Okay, so a quick review of that with this one. Dot length should be 16. So if we called something like, type some of this out here, right, it's system out print of str.length, that should be 16. Right, so make a little note here that that's 16. And then the different calls. So like if I wanted to get this index 7 of where the period is, you do like int idx equals str dot index of. So it returns the first index of it. So if there was two periods in here, it would return the index of the first one. So in this case, it's just going to be 7. You only have one period. And then if it's not, right, if it's not in there, it returns -1. So if I did index of something like, let's do another one, str dot index of, let's see, Zaz. I don't know, how do you spell Zaz? Well, we're going to spell it that way. But it does not contain the string Zaz at all, so that would just return -1. Okay, that's how index of works. And then the huge ones you got to know is substring. So um, if I wanted to get, say, Billy J without the period, I could do string, like first part of the string is equal to str.substring, and I could do from 0, the beginning index, and then since I already have the index of the period, I might just use idx, that variable. And remember, the weird part about this one is it runs one pass. So you'd think this would return Billy J period, but it actually runs one pass, so it just does Billy J. All right, the other type of substring runs from a position all the way to the end. So if I wanted to get Bumpkin, so maybe make a new string, I could call str.substring, and this is kind of bad to hard code things here, but I'm just going to put 9 in there. And so that's going to take from position 9 all the way to the end, right? So, you don't need to, specify a second index here. It just takes from 9 all the way to the end and returns Bumpkin. The only other methods to kind of briefly mention are the equals and compare to. Equals just is usually used in an if statement to see if the string is equal to some other string. So here you would just call it with like something like str dot equals, and then you put the name of another string in here, or just make a new string, whatever, like that. That'll return true or false, in this case, false. All right, and then compare to will return alphabetically. If the first string is before the second string, it returns a negative. If it's after it in the alphabet, it returns positive, right? And that's going to come up in these notes, right? So that's kind of a brief review. And then the next thing for you to do is follow the link to get the starter code. So there should be a link back here. So if you go into the folder for today with strings, and then click on this link to the starter code, you want to get one that's called string notes for AP test, and then you can put it wherever. I've just kind of got a separate thing here that's got all my AP test prep stuff in it. But basically, just store that string notes for AP test. All right, and then much as before, I've got the string Billy J Bumpkin and some tasks for you here in the comments. So your job is to try them first, and then when you get stuck, come back and watch this or check your answers using it. All right, so it's just a few different things. And then they've got a couple compare to ones where you don't have to code anything, but just figure out what are they returned. All right, so pause the video, give these a shot, and then unpause to check your work. And again, you can kind of switch back and forth as you go. All right, hopefully you got a chance to try these out. So to get the first letter, it's just position 0 to 1 substring. So I could do string first letter equals str.substring and just go from 0 to 1. And that'll get that letter. To do the length, it returns an int. So I'm going to do int length equals str.length. And that gets you the length, which in this case is 16. And that is useful if I want to find this last letter. I can do substring from length minus 1 all the way till the end. So if I just do this second type of substring call, or if I do length minus 1, it'll just get the last letter and go all the way to the end, which will just be one letter. All right, so for the last letter, I can use length and just do one less than that. So I can do string last letter equals str.substring and just do just the one parameter one here, length minus 1, right? I don't need to specify the second ending point because it's going to go all the way to the end, and that should get the last letter. Okay, moving right along. To get the index of the space, I would just make it an int. So index of returns a number, an int of where it occurs at. So I'm just going to call str.index of, and then pass in the string. So I'm just passing in a space, and that again will get the first space. So Billy J Bumpkin has 2 spaces, but this gets the index of the first one, which should be 5 right there. Okay, so now that we know where the first space is, we can get the first name by just calling substring from 0 to that index, because again it runs one pass. So if I want to get the first name equals str.substring, go from 0 to space IDX. And that should give me the first name. So to get the last name, I'm just going to jump forward so many spaces. So I have this position, and I really want to do from 9 on. So if I have 5 and I want to get 9 on, I just have to add 4. Right? And I'm going to do the single one. I'm going to do this one essentially right here, where I just call from position 9 on. So that's 4 more than the space IDX. So for the last name, I'm going to do space IDX plus 4. Okay, and that really should work as long as, like, if we change this name to Sammy J, but no, that'd be the same length. Let's do, I don't know, Gretchen J Bumpkin or something. Then it doesn't matter how long this is. If it's the same format, this code will work, right? As long as we have one initial period and then another space, that code will work regardless of how long the first name is. All right, so that's called making it generic, which is generally a good plan in programming. All right, so now I want to know if the last name is Bumpkin and insult them if it is, of course. So basically we can do if, let's see, last name dot equals, and bumpkin. Okay, and the uppercase does matter there, so this should work. And we could say something insulting like, you must be friends with Mitchell. It's about as insulting as I can think, right? And that should actually print here, right? So if you run it, it'll actually print. Okay, and then the last ones are the compare to. So we're comparing our original string, which is Billy J Bumpkin, and so asymptote comes before that. So I guess I should say it the other way around. Billy comes after asymptote, so this one should be negative, right? Where Billy comes before wombat, so this will be negative. So this one should be positive, negative. Okay, and not surprisingly, we print out that you must be friends with Mitchell. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions on it, let me know. The rest of this string review is just a bunch of coding bat ones, and I'm going to make help videos that'll be next to each of them. It is kind of a lot, but work through them in this order, all right, and give them your best shot. Some of the early ones should not be too bad. This last one's pretty challenging, so use the help video if you get stuck. These will definitely help you be ready for AP test and review the concepts of the different string methods, right? And certainly reference that quick reference thing throughout this. All right, hope that helps. Take care.